Hey, deserving listeners, let's continue reacting to The Bachelorette, Greg and Katie. Let's watch.
The way you treated me, the way you said that you are so in love with me, I filled a hole in your heart. And the small second that things got awkward for you, uncomfortable, you ran, you're a liar. You did not love me. And if you think that's love, you don't know what love is.
So this is, I think, getting a little bit closer to the issue. Instead of just accusing him of being some playboy who is in acting school, she is getting more to the point of, you say you love me, you say you loved me, but then on a dime you left me. That's not love. I still don't think that's an accurate conceptualization, but hopefully now, if he has access to his emotions and he can tear down the wall, which I don't think he's going to do, he could say something like, I know it looked that way, but I genuinely was in love with you. And I don't know what happened that one night. Maybe it was you, maybe it was me, I don't know, but something happened and it freaked me out and I fell out of love with you in that moment. I don't know why, but I was genuinely in love with you. I mean, I was so in love with you. More in love than I've ever been before. Like, if he said something like that, I wonder if that would convince her and the clapping audience.
Yeah, I will say I had 3 relationships going on. And in that moment, I was continuing to be open as the Bachelorette, dating these multiple men who I was falling for. That's how this works.
I'm sorry.
Right. She was saying that back then in a much nicer way, and now she's like, you understand we're on a TV show called The Bachelorette, and I'm still in a relationship with 3 people, and there is a process, and yeah, I wasn't where you're at. I can't be where you're at because we're on a TV show called The Bachelorette. Have you seen the show? Yeah, I was having the same frustration. But so he's getting a little bit to it, but I think in order for him to be able to fully redeem himself to Katie and the audience, he would have to have access to his emotions and be able to be vulnerable. And I don't think he feels safe enough to do that. Not because of her, but because of his just schemas.
Honestly, if you feel like I was talking down to you, I was
gaslighting, I think, is probably a better word.
There's that word, gaslight. I don't know what people mean by it. Do people mean lying? I think people literally just mean lying when they're saying gaslighting. You were lying to me. We have a word for lying. It's called lying. I feel like people also use the word gaslighting in the sense of you're lying in a sort of a campaign of lies, like a group of lies together. You know, it's one thing to say like, no, I wasn't cheating on you, or God, I'm just trying to think. I'm having a hard time. Let me know in the comments below, like, what is the internet definition of gaslighting? Is it just lying? Is it just tricking someone? Because we have words for that. Perfectly wonderful words: deception, lying, con artist or something. There are words for it. And gaslighting, again, we've been using it for a long time. And somehow I feel like people will. So this is just my soapbox. So I feel like lies and fake news and all that nomenclature have become so diminished because of how many lies are on the internet and how much fakeness is on the internet, that words like deception and fake and lies and con artists and these kinds of things have become so normalized that we need a stronger word for lies and deception, and that's where gaslighting comes in. That's just my guess, because I think 30 years ago, if you were on a show like this, you would say, you mean lying? That would be a powerful word. You mean being fake? You mean being two-faced or whatever? I think that would hold a lot of weight. But today, I don't think it does anymore. And so people feel like they need a stronger word. In the same way that people use narcissistic personality disorder all the time now in ways that are completely inaccurate. And I think because 30 years ago, we would have said, you're self-centered or you're stuck up. I remember when I was young, we called people stuck up because they were stuck on themselves. And because those words feel not very powerful because they get used so much, and maybe because the internet is so rife with it, that we feel like we need some stronger word to really blast someone with, because the regular words they're so watered down. And okay, I'll adjust with the times. I mean, language changes, but It's still just kind of grates on me that we're using that term.
You spoke to me, you think that's okay. That's how you speak to your potentially future wife. That's how you resolve a
Katie,
disagreement.
gaslighting is a very strong term, so
Yes.
explain that.
Gaslighting is when you try to make someone else feel like it's their fault. And you came at me.
Okay, that's probably right. Okay, that's probably right. I'm guessing a lot of you were commenting below. People are using the word gaslighting to refer to, you're trying to make it my fault. Yeah, I bet you that's what people are using. That's not the definition of gaslighting. Now, maybe it is the new definition. It's not the old definition, like I was saying. And we've been using it in the clinical literature and the domestic violence literature for a long time. But you're trying to make it seem like it's their fault. So you're like, look at, yeah, I'm leaving. So the accusation is Greg knew he was going to leave, and he never really wanted to be with her. And so he's like, look what you did to me, So it is kind of I guess it is a mini version of gaslighting. So in terms of the way I use it, I don't know. I'm guessing y'all are just like, why is he focusing on this word so much? I don't know. I'm just curious as to why people are using it and how much of a slam dunk it's being. People when you're gaslighting, and it just seems like as soon as you say that word, the conversation is over. I have decided you're gaslighting me, and yay, I've won the fight. But I remember with what's their name, Trisha and Ethan, they both said they were gaslighting each other. Anyway, I don't think he was gaslighting. I think he, like I said, genuinely fell in love. Something was triggered in him, some trauma, and he fell into an abyss, became highly distorted, and panicked and left. That's my guess. I don't think he was on a campaign to make. Now it had that effect though, right? It has a gaslighting effect, like I was talking about before, in terms of she started to second guess herself. She's like, did I do something wrong? Yeah, that's sort of a gaslighting effect where you start to second guess, wait, do I have a distorted picture of reality? Because he seems so sure of himself that I'm the one that screwed this up. But I don't feel like I did, but did I? So that's kind of a gaslighting effect, right? But I don't think it was on purpose. I think he was distorted. And we understand that people have defense mechanisms and become distorted, right? So, yeah.
Conversation instead of being so rude and dramatic and leaving without even saying goodbye.
Listen, I'm sorry you feel like that. I'm sorry the way things ended between us. It was a tough environment to be in.
And kudos to Greg, honestly, for not participating in the argument. He's just like, yeah, he's not really apologizing. I think he should be apologizing more, but at least he's not matching her energy in this moment. She's just slinging a lot of things at him, which again, she's entitled to. She was dumped in a very difficult way and accused. He blamed her for the whole thing and said, I just can't deal with this anymore, as if she had done something wrong. She had done nothing wrong. She had done everything right. She has every reason to be upset. She has every reason to be angry. She has every reason to be hurt. So, I get it. But when we're hurt and angry, we will say things that aren't necessarily refined. And so I'll commend her for expressing her emotions and getting it off her chest. And I'll commend him for not participating in, because we've known other people on reality TV shows that will just match the energy of just like, no, da-da-da, and then make all these sort of ridiculous things. So he's not doing that. He could. I just really hope that he gets into therapy and is able to discover his issues as it relates to what happened, because it will happen again. The issue that happened with Katie will happen again in future relationships. I'm quite sure of it. And I just hope that he can get the help that he needs.
I wish I can go back then and change how I communicated my feelings. I was, in that moment, my head was in just a million places.
Okay, that's good. I don't know if it's very convincing to Katie, but it's good. He's taking responsibility. I think, but again, the problem that resulted in what happened is also present and creates a problem for him not being able to apologize fully. Because in order for him to apologize fully, he has to be self-aware. And I don't know how self-aware he is.
I literally was on my knees begging this man to stay. I gave him validation every single week, and he had the nerve to look down on me and say, I deserve more. I don't want that. I don't regret anything.
Yeah, that statement I'll get behind. The fact that she was doing everything and he says he deserves more. And I remember reacting. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, that was unfair to her. It was, but really, who's losing in this situation? Is it Katie? I think it's Greg. I think, like I said, I'm not worried about Katie. She'll be fine. But I am worried about Greg. So, and the other thing I was thinking, and I think I said, was for Katie, you might have dodged a bullet because you were days away from marrying this guy, and you saw what kind of issues he has and how seemingly unaware he is of those issues. And so it would have been worse if you learned it later on, right? You got to see it up front. So you could say, well, I guess this is, I don't know what's going on with that, but something's going on there, and I don't think that's going to work very well for us. And this is a bias that people have that I guess I'll mention, is that when people see people with behavior like Greg, they assume it's volitional. They assume it's purposeful. Like they wake up in the morning, they're like, yeah, I'm going to ruin my life today. No, people don't do that. People don't wake up in the morning and say like, yeah, I think I'll completely tank my love life. I mean, he lost. I think my opinion is Greg lost. Greg had a wonderful, nice, good listener, person that he fell in love with, and something happened in him, and he became distorted and walked away. Greg's the one that lost. He's the one who is going to, he was already sad and depressed. I don't know if it's full-on depression, but that's what it sounded like. Then his dad dies, and he's even worse. He's all bottled up. He's not talking with anyone. And now he lost his future wife. So he says he has no regrets, but I don't know about that. So I hope everyone can see that he is the victim of his own issues, and Katie will not be. Katie's moving on.
Me, when I'm telling you that I may leave, like, yes, I'm going to go, it wasn't you saying, like, don't leave, I'm not going to do this without you, or I'm coming with you, in a sense. It was just...
Why would I fight for you at that level?
Yeah, totally agree. Why would she fight? Because at that point, what's happening and why are you treating me this way? And she did fight, by the way. But that's interesting. So he's saying that it wasn't just that one moment, it was several moments. So which doesn't surprise me, honestly, given what I think happened, is that for him, he was really falling in love with her and really putting himself out there. And he was hearing her give this Bachelorette lingo along the way instead of being genuine, which so he's giving us more data to back up that hypothesis that for him, he's being super vulnerable in a way that he is not comfortable with. And actually, I'll say that for avoidant people and by extension, narcissistic people, I'm not saying he's narcissistic. There's really no sign of that. I don't know if he's narcissistic. When I diagnose people, I assess them over months. But I will say that for people who are avoidant and or narcissistic, they will be pathologically independent. They'll be very subdued about their emotions, cut off from their emotions. But every once in a while, they'll come across a situation where they feel safe enough to show their emotions and be vulnerable because they've always wanted that. They're desperate for that kind of expression and relationship. And they're able to finally let go and it feels euphoric because it's like, oh, I can finally feel safe. And so I wonder if that's what was happening for him. It wasn't just like a little bit of emotion. It was just like everything was coming out for him. And it kind of seemed that way. And he was bumping up against this lingo that she was giving of just like the rose and the front runner and the da-da-da, instead of her just throwing her arms around him and saying, yes, you're the one too, let's leave now. And that's a normal if I was on the show, I would want that too. I'd be like, can we just do away? Isn't it you and me? Let's just forget it. And we also know that I guess I hadn't mentioned this, that there's that early scene where he is watching her make out with some guy, one of the other guys, and it's really hurting him, which of course it would hurt anyone in that situation. He didn't punish her or anything, but that might have planted a seed for him of just like, I thought we were. So he's like a non-Bachelorette cast member that sort of was transported into that world, because I find that a lot of the Bachelorette, Bachelor people, they sort of understand the format, because it is a weird thing if you think about it, that, okay, I've fallen in love with someone and I think they're in love with me, but I know they're going to have other dates and make out with these other people, and they're going to have potentially they're going to have sex with these other people, in the later stages of the show. And I just need to be okay with that, even though I'm pretty sure she wants to be with me. Like, that doesn't, for the rest of us, we wouldn't do that. Like, you're on a date with someone and you're like, oh my God, I love you. Oh my God, let's be in an exclusive relationship. Yeah, I want to, but I'm on this TV show and I have to be with other people. You'd be like, well, just don't do that. So I think he was bumping up against that. Now, I will also say that when you are a black and white thinker, when you have a difficult time with your vulnerability anyway, you have a hard time being flexible. And I think that's what he was running into. He was having a really hard time being flexible. Other people who might not have the same schemas as him would be able to be flexible. It was like, okay, this doesn't feel good, but I just have to hold on for a couple more days and then everything will be fine. So anyway.
I didn't know that I was going to find such happiness with you in those moments. Getting down on one knee is a forever type of thing for me. And yeah, I got scared by the terminology you're using, and I felt like you were playing the Bachelorette role with.
Yes, exactly. There's so many things pointing in that direction, including him saying that. And I'm glad he said that. And I think for her, because I think she's been on The Bachelorette before, or The Bachelor. And of course, if you watch this show a lot, you're familiar with the lingo, and you're familiar with the process. And when I watch the show, I have a similar reaction to Greg of just like, wow, how do they cope with that? Like, because the contestants, the men, they're just so into, there's varying degrees of it, but they just seem so into it. Including Blake, who is now engaged or married to Katie. For him to watch the show and to watch her fall in love not only with Greg but with Michael, that's got to be rough. Maybe he doesn't watch the show anyway, but it's fine. It's a way. It's almost like this other culture. Like in my Seattle culture, when I hear about other cultures where they do matchmaking, right, where it's arranged marriages, I'm like, whoa, that's such an interesting way of living. How do you deal with that? It must be so strange. Like you don't even know your spouse until after you're married. That must be so interesting. And, they make it work. And so, it's just but it's a whole culture, and there's all these rules and indoctrinations that occur that support that very different culture. The Bachelorette and The Bachelor are like that. It's a whole other, if you really just think about it, if an alien came down from space, they'd be like, why are those people doing it that way while everyone else is doing it a different way? And I feel like Greg isn't of that culture. He's like me going into another culture where they do arranged marriages, and it's just like, I don't like this system. And I think he genuinely fell in love with her, and it was just like, I don't like this lingo you're using. It hurts my feelings. It makes me feel like I'm just a contestant instead of a real human being. I think that. Now, I will say that Katie's on the right, because they both signed up to be on the show. If he couldn't deal with that thing, he shouldn't have been on the show, right? I don't go to I didn't, when, I decided to get married or, started dating, I didn't go to a culture where they do arranged marriages and bump up against all that culture and like complain about it the whole time. And so you just have to wonder, Greg, why did you go on the show if you couldn't cope with it? Like, you should have thought about that before you went on.
Say I love you to one person at the end. I respect that. But what that also, I feel like, did was withhold some emotions and being able to vocalize how you truly felt. And
yeah, again, she's on a show. I'm guessing she's going to say, yeah, I'm on a TV show called The Bachelor. That's how it works. But we hear this word withhold from him, and I think that's where possibly his trauma is a lot of people have traumas around withholding parents who withhold love and attention and attunement. And I suspect that might be at his core is she was withholding. She was withholding the I love yous. She was withholding the reciprocation. And when you've experienced that as a child, it can be very devastating. And when you are triggered as an adult, it feels nefarious. It feels very dangerous. It can feel like gaslighting, I suppose. It feels like, wait, I think you love me, but you're holding it back, and because you just don't want to give it to me for some reason. And that can be very scary. It can be a very scary experience. If you've ever experienced before where someone is purposely withholding from you, like they're playing a game with you. If you've ever had a parent like that, it can be extremely frustrating and hurtful. And so but she wasn't withholding. If anything, she was giving a lot more than what she should have, given the fact she's on The Bachelorette, because I think she was legit in love with him. But it felt like withholding to him because he doesn't understand the system of The Bachelorette.
In that exact moment where I didn't give you back what you wanted, but I feel like maybe it was even earlier than that, and maybe you realize that, maybe you don't, because if you really did love me, that moment wouldn't have pushed you away.
I don't agree. I understand where she's coming from because we have this notion that love conquers all or something, and it doesn't. Love does not conquer all. So I don't know if you hear in my stomach, I'm hungry right now. I get it, where she's coming from, and I understand why she would think that, because it is so unusual that on a dime you would just be 1,000,000,000% in love, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're not. Like, that is unusual for sure. And you would say, well, he couldn't have really loved me, but he could have, and I think he did. I think he almost loved her too much. If anything, if he loved her a little less, I think things would have gone better, because he wouldn't have been so vulnerable, and then they could have got married, and then she could actually reciprocate at that point. So I think it did happen that way. I don't know, but there's a lot of evidence pointing in that direction.
I don't think that's fair to say. I mean, we had plenty of talks, and there was plenty of moments for you, if you did think I was the one, for you to say something to me. And
he keeps saying that. It's not fair for you to say. It is fair for her to say. It's a completely fair. What he should be saying is, I totally get why you think that because of what happened, but I don't know how to convince you, but I was so in love with you up until that moment, and I don't know what happened, but something happened. So now she could say something like, you didn't love me in the way that I wanted you to love me because you were so quick to leave me. That is a legit thing to say of you didn't back then, you did not love me the way that I want someone to love me, which is that you won't leave in a situation like that, that even if you're struggling with something, you just won't ditch me, that would be valid, I think.
The second I tell someone they're the one, that's when my journey ends. My journey wasn't over.
I wasn't asking for you to end your journey. I was telling me, I shouldn't have asked the woman that I'm going to possibly marry how they feel. You should be able to want to tell me that. I shouldn't have to ask that.
Right. So we're starting to get to the core of it now, which he expressed during the other episode too, where this is the pain and this is the entitlement that he feels. This is a childish entitlement of, I expressed love to you, and you should be expressing your love to me, and because you didn't do that, that's a betrayal. I remember thinking there's some betrayal themes in what he's talking about. So this is the anger, this is the hurt of, I I shouldn't have to ask you to tell me that you love me. I shouldn't have to do that. But again, dude, you're on a reality TV show. You're on The Bachelorette. She can't say that. She can't say she loves you. She can't commit to you. But in his head, because of his traumas, it totally eclipses what's happening in the moment. And he sees it as a withholding, a purposeful withholding, and a betrayal. Like she purposely tried to hurt him, which is his distortion. And of course, if you see it that way, then you would leave. And I think that's what happened. Because something very deep and very sure would have to occur to him during those moments for him to leave such a wonderful relationship, such an intense love. And I think it was this distortion of betrayal and withholding.
Week after week after week.
A relationship is a two-way street. And yes, I know you're the Bachelorette, but still, that doesn't put you any higher in this relationship and me any lower. I emptied my heart out to you.
Well, now they're clapping for him. So I'm utterly confused by this audience. But again, you hear it in his voice and we hear that language of, that doesn't make you higher than me. Where did that come into things? She is higher than you. By definition, she has privilege. She gets to say yes or no to a couple dozen men, few dozen men. She is higher than you. She has power. She's the Bachelorette. Her face is on the TV show banner, not you. She is higher than you. But so this notion of you're not higher than me and to treat me, I think he felt like he was being treated like he was lower. And that's interesting. That's another potential trigger point for him.
I emptied my heart out to you on that couch, and all I got was just a pat on the back after it.
Right. I'm so glad that they're actually just letting this conversation breathe a little bit. That's how it felt to him. That's not what happened, as far as I can tell. She was holding his hand, eye contact, listening, totally there with him. And he felt like it was just a pat on the back, like, oh. That's not what happened. But that's how it felt. That's how it felt.
I was just saying.
It's not really fair to give me an ultimatum the way you did.
I didn't give you any ultimatum.
I know, but you just said, if I really wanted you to stay, I would have basically told you that I loved you.
Well, at this point, yeah.
Right. And I think he's entitled to that. He's breaking the rules of The Bachelorette, but I think he's entitled to that. I don't think he should go ever again on a Bachelorette show. But I think that's normal. And I've been saying this from the beginning, and she's entitled to be like, look, just wait a couple days. We're on a show. We have to play the game. And, that's part of the thing. So I think they were cross-cultural dating, I think is one way to think about it.
Like, let's face the facts. If it was me, you would have stopped me. And I knew that.
I mean,
Now that's wrong, because he was such a jerk face to her and she did try to stop him. What do you mean, if you loved me, you would have stopped me? What was she supposed to do, tackle you? You walked away several times. So it's an interesting distortion that he has of just like, you betrayed me. You were the one who let me down. It's not, I was all in. It's an interesting way of seeing it, because that's not how I see it.
On both sides. But I do want to thank you both for your honesty. Hopefully it brought a little closure for both of you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I wish you nothing but the best.
I wish you nothing but the best.
Appreciate it.
I don't think this is over between the two of them. I think this isn't closure. I think they're going to need a lot of therapy from this. I particularly worry about Greg, because he's the one that is retaining his schemas and his issues. Katie is hurt and will grieve this, and I didn't show these clips, but she was talking about how it was so demoralizing. It makes you question, like, can I trust anyone? And then you just have to wonder, because she, chose Blake in the end. You have to wonder, is her heart really into Blake, or was Blake just, I mean, I hate to say it, but kind of a rebound when you're down and you're just like, well, someone just please love me and validate me. I don't care who it is, kind of thing. I don't know. I have no idea. But it does throw that into question, because she was like, yes, Greg. Oh, Greg left me. Okay. How about Blake? Who knows? Maybe, love is strange. It grows. Maybe they're 100% in love. Maybe they'll be together forever. But I think that for Katie, there is a lot of healing to do, and she deserves that. She's the victim of Greg's issues, but so is Greg. That's the way I'd say. They're both victims of Greg's attachment issues. Yeah.
Coming up next.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.